So this is Quasit, which is a sequencer for the ZOIA and ZBoo. It outputs CV, obviously, it's what I'm using it for right now, but also MIDI. And it is inspired by the stochastic inspiration generator module, if you're familiar with that. And that module and this patch both try to address one of the difficulties of working in the generative space, which is that if you just throw random numbers at something, you get something that is unpredictable, but it doesn't have a lot of cohesion. It doesn't have a lot of organization. So this is an idea that I've toyed with before in a patch called the probability mixer. This is sort of a more focused version of it, but what it does is it allows you to weigh the likelihood of certain events occurring, rather than just throwing random numbers at something and seeing what sticks. It uses probability to allow you to control the likelihood that a given note will play, or that it'll play in a certain octave, or that it'll play at a certain rhythm. So right now I have a very simple minor sequence going, but I can add variation to it. If we look, the A has some weight, the C has some weight, and the E has some weight, with the A having the most weight because I want to sort of enforce the idea that this is an A, key. But I could add, say, a seventh note every so often, just by increasing the likelihood of G. Let's add in a fourth, too. And we can change the likelihood that the eighths occur. Let's make that . Every now and then, let's throw in a half note. So I hope the idea that's being conveyed here is that you can sort of quickly dial in variety that is sort of self-consistent, right? Because each of these options have their own weight, let's change the likelihood that this jumps up another octave every now and then. You have a lot of control over the sequence that's generated, and not just control over it, but control over the likelihood that events occur. So, we could really reinforce the A by pushing that up. And I should point out that all the sound being generated right now is by my 2 HP pluck. So that's the basic principle, is you have, different notes that you can apply different weights to, different octaves. The octave controls are up here at the top. We have the notes laid out like they are on a keyboard. And then at the bottom we have time divisions everywhere from 1 bar to down to 30-second notes. So that's the basic operation. I added in a few other features. I'll just go through the ones on the main page. We have clock in. There's also clock in via MIDI. We can reset the clock. And the reason you might want to do that, this is just a push button, is that you can have the clock sort of, depending on what variations go in, if you wanted to go back to, say, quarter notes, you might be like an eighth of a step off, right? Because an eighth was generated somewhere and you want to go back to having the notes sort of fall in line with the incoming clock, which is treated as a quarter note. Then you could reset that. You can loop the pitch. You can do that here on the front panel. You can do that here on the utility buttons if you're using it with Zebu. And you can do it here on this second page as well. There's plenty of places to loop the pitch. And I'll come back to that in a second because there are some options for that. You can also loop the rhythm. So the same rhythm will play over and over again as the pitch changes. We have an indicator of the tempo, which is also a tap tempo if we want to use tap tempo instead of an external clock. We have a gate chance. So this is the chance that a gate is produced on any given step, and we can lower that to introduce some space, some rests, essentially, that are randomly generated. And then we have a feature down here called micro timing, which I didn't realize I had on. And may explain some of the sounds. So the idea of micro timing is that it is a range control, and the higher it's set, the more random delays are inserted into the path to add sort of a sloppiness to the sequencer, which gives it a more, this is how some, older drum machines would add human feel. And now we're getting much more like rhythmically precise stuff. It's a subtle effect because I couldn't scale it to every rhythm. So as you get to longer and longer notes, if you're using like bars up here, you might not notice it that much. It's scaled to the eighth note because the delay has to sort of conclude before a subsequent note can play. So there's sort of a limited range depending on what is being produced. And I couldn't figure out a way to rescale that based on what the generator generated. But it can add a real nice, I think, instability to the rhythm that makes it feel more played than sequenced. And these effects, the gate chants and the micro timing, are not stored in the loop, I should say. When you do loop the rhythm, they're sort of global effects that are applied to whatever the patch produces, whether that's from newly generated material or something that is looped. I'll leave a little bit of micro timing going on. I like it. So we also have some additional options. One of the difficulties, again, I think with sort of generative RNG approaches is that you just sort of have stuff changing all the time, particularly with rhythm. So we have these sort of what I call calculations, and this determines when a new variable is generated for a specific type of control. So we can control how often the notes are changed, either per step, and that means if you've got a mixture of eighths and sixteenths and quarters, each time any of those is generated, a new step will be or a new note will be calculated. It might change in pitch, but we can change that to per quarter note, and then it'll only change every quarter note, regardless of what else is going on. We can do that per whole note. And we can even do that per bar, which is kind of nice if you have it on, say, quarter notes and want to generate like a bass line, for instance. So it'll go da da da, you know, it'll play the same note for a while and then shift. Put that back on quarter notes, and you'll notice it won't change until it'll finish out the bar, let's say, or the quarter note or whatever, before changing back to the new thing, which is also kind of useful, perhaps performatively. We have that for octave changes too, so we could have, you know, something going on in one octave and then it'll drop to an octave at the next whole note, which again can give more coherence to a sequence or a melody. And then we also have this for the rhythm. So if I change this back to per step, the rhythm is going to become, I'd say, a lot more herky-jerky. You'll hear it. So again, we could change that per whole note, etc. And then we have the options for the loopers. So the loopers actually work like shift registers, which if you're familiar with shift registers, I've talked about them what feels like 1,000 times at this point, but basically it allows you to introduce variation over time. So I'm going to simplify this rhythmically and just go to quarter notes. So we have like a good frame of reference for that with the pitch. We can pick the length of the loop up to 16 steps. It doesn't go sort of sequentially. It goes from 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 steps to 12 steps to 16 steps, depending on this control. I'm going to set it at 16 steps, which is the full amount. But I just tried to... The length is a CPU requirement. This patch is sort of right up against it, and I tried to pick lengths that I thought were useful and interesting. So, you know, up 3 to 8 is sort of different variations on classic analog sequencers. And then 12 and 16 are sort of multiples of a 4-step process. So we can lock this. Let's get this going a little faster. So we can lock this in place when we loop the pitch. But we can also affect the stability of that loop. So as I turn the stability down, some new notes will be introduced. And one advantage there, you saw me go back to the main page and change the octave probability, is we could start, let's say, with a minor arpeggio, and then slowly add in those elements of, you know, sevenths and fourths and whatever, from a pretty stable, you know, like point of reference. So that's one of the benefits of this sort of shift register approach, is that you can, again, it's another way to sort of harness those random elements to make them a little bit more musical. And we can do the same with rhythm. This will make the most sense if I put it back on changing the rhythm per step. Put in something real funky. So I've got quarter notes, eighth notes, and dotted eighth notes. So the rhythm will again just repeat. As new notes are generated over it, and the lengths of those two things can be the same, but they can be different, which allows for some interesting variations over time as you play around with stability, that sort of thing. Take out the sorry, the dotted 16ths, not the dotted eighth notes. In this corner here on this page, we just have a transpose. There is a second output. It's clocked by the same source. So right now I have the output multed elsewhere in my system to get 2 clocks or 2 gate sources. But this is the last step in the loop. So when the pitch isn't looped, it acts as sort of a delay, and you get a note that was played earlier, played later at this output, and you can transpose it. So right now I've just got a simple synth voice patched up. Coming out of that output. And that's, again, you have that in MIDI. There are 2 MIDI outputs here on this page for MIDI, which is where you would make your MIDI assignments. And the last sort of operation page is devoted to an element from the stochastic inspiration generator that I really liked and wanted to keep. Or maybe it's the SIG Plus, I'm not sure. But you have these switches that allow you to change the octave of given notes, which is good for creating quick inversions or just adding variety or, what have you. So these work with a press of the top button being an increase in the octave for that note. So our A's are now playing an octave above. We could make them play an octave below. And there's a key over here to let you know what octave these colors represent. So aqua is no change, green is down an octave. This is going to sound bad because the 2 HP pluck doesn't really do bass very well, but we can go down 2 octaves. You can go down further than that, but I wouldn't necessarily advise it. And there's no representation of the other colors on the key, so you can go up 2 octaves or 3 again if you want, or actually now we're at 4 octaves. But generally, it allows you to create more variations within a pattern, and you can do it sort of performatively too, so you could raise the octave of these 2 notes. This is the C and the E, just for a little bit, and then bring them back down. And that is Quasit. That's the sort of performance elements. If you're curious about how it works, I'd check out the probability mixer video that I did a while ago, where I go into more sort of technical details about what the probability mixer is and how it works. But the essential idea is that you're using each of these value options to create weights using comparators. And those comparators select switches that correspond to those options. So as I increase A, the likelihood that the comparator that will switch to A, or the set of comparators that will switch to A goes up. But again, I go into a little bit more detail into the technical aspect of that in the probability mixer video, But yeah, it's essentially a way of using different ranges and thresholds from comparators to determine where a random number falls, which can be useful in a bunch of other applications too if you want to dig into it. It's a little bit tedious to patch up, but once you have it patched up, it's a really convenient way to do that sort of operation. So that is Quasit. I hope you check it out and enjoy it and have a good day. And if you like this, I'm trying to be more proactive about this. I should probably do it at the beginning of the videos. But if you like a patch of mine or use it on social media, please consider going to Patch Storage and liking the patch or tagging me on social media. You know, it's kind of like a lot of work that goes into these things. So that's a pretty simple way to let me know I'm appreciated. But yeah, I hope you enjoy it no matter what, but if you do enjoy it, please consider those things. I say to the no people, if I look at my analytics, who watch all of my patch demo videos. So that is Quasit. I hope you enjoy it and have a good day.